No, the time zone changed, didn't it?
All right, good morning, everyone. And welcome to our December meeting of the Syracuse Industrial Development Agency. I'd like to call the meeting to order by calling a roll call of the board members. I'm Kathy Murphy.
Mackenzie.
Dirk Sonneborn.
And Steve Thompson.
Thank you very much. Ricky Brown is absent with a family emergency. We would extend our very deepest sympathies to him and wish his family the very best. Proof of notice was properly served, and enclosed in our packet were the minutes of our last meeting held November 21 of 2023. Second? Second, Ken, thank you. Any changes, concerns? Absolutely none by Dirk, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. First item.
It's half-calf.
First item on the agenda is a new business item, McCarthy Manor Housing Limited Partnership. Sue Katzoff. Welcome back from your vacation, Sue.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This project has applied for benefits to the IDA, including the issuance of tax-exempt bonds. This is a project located at 501 to 15 South Krause Avenue. It's an 8-story, 176-unit apartment building. It consists of 175 one-bedroom units that are rented to seniors and disabled who meet certain income limits. There is one 2-bedroom unit that is a live-in employee who cares for the property. They are looking to renovate the interior, all of the units, update them, update the security, update the mechanicals, including HVAC, new windows, lighting, etc., as well as landscaping. There is an associated parking lot that comes with the facility. The project is looking for state and local sales and use tax exemption for purposes of completing the renovations. They are looking for mortgage recording tax exemption, and they are looking for, as I mentioned, the issuance of the agency's tax-exempt bonds in an amount not to exceed $24 million. What we're asking for today is the authority to hold a public hearing under both the general municipal law, which you are used to, as well as the Internal Revenue Code, which is required for the issuance of tax-exempt bonds. Should you approve this resolution would also act as what's considered your official intent resolution under the Internal Revenue Code, which simply means that you intend to reimburse eligible costs out of the proceeds of the bonds. SIDA is anticipating that next year, should this project go forward, you will have sufficient volume cap in order to issue the bonds. And volume cap is simply an allocation that is given by the federal government through the states for entities such as the IDA to be able to issue tax-exempt bonds.
You have that capacity. Well, anticipate having that capacity?
Yes.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome. So really, we are just seeking the authority to hold a public hearing. You are not authorizing the project. You are not authorizing the issuance of bonds or any other financial assistance. We're just looking to hold the public hearing.
I have one quick question. I believe we have a representative here for the project. Brian, am I correct? If you just want to come up and identify yourself, name, address.
Yeah, Brian Sampson from Related Affordable.
Thank you, Brian. And the address?
Our office is at 30 Hudson Yards, New York, 10001.
Great, thanks. And I have one other quick question.
Yeah.
If I and then I will let the motion go, I promise. I have calculated approximately $20,000 to $21,000 per unit investment on the rehab. Is that about right?
No, I think we're looking closer to $50,000 per unit.
Okay, I'm going back to my math then. Okay, and it's 501 South Krause, just for everybody's clarification. There is a motion made by Ken to approve the resolution for the public hearing.
Because I was where you were, 40 million divided by 176.
I think that's what I did. Yeah. But we'll go back and get further detail from Brian. And let me also just add, this will be addressed at a January Finance Committee meeting as well. Is there a second? Second, Dirk. Any further comments, discussion, concerns? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. We'll see you in January. Next item on the agenda, Symphony Tower. Eric.
Good morning, everyone. So the request before us is an extension of a sales tax exemption period, which currently for the Symphony Tower project, as you recall, this is a downtown mixed-use conversion of the adaptive reuse of formerly part of the Hotel Syracuse complex. The current sales tax exemption period runs through December 31st of this calendar year. The applicant has requested a 90-day extension on the project. We received additional information in terms of the status of the construction. At the time of the request being submitted, the project was approximately 86% complete. Work and construction continues to be underway on a daily basis. The project is projecting a completion date of the upper floors of the apartments in the building by January 15th, and then subsequently the additional project completion of the remaining units would be done by the end of January. Marketing of the properties in the apartments has started and is well underway, and improvements are again projected to be completed by the end of January. The 90-day request is just to make sure all purchases can be accounted for and fully completed, and then the project will be done by the end of Q1 next year. So 90-day request, and just wanted to open it up for any questions. But like I said, overall project is nearing completion, but just needs that additional 90-day extension for more time.
And there's no additional financial assistance associated with it, just more time to use what you.
Questions? Motion? Motion made by Ken. Thanks. A second?
No second.
Second, Steve. Last call. Any questions or comments, concerns? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a request by One Remington LLC. Eric.
So this would be a request to extend the agency agreement and the lease documents that have been, previously this project was reviewed, fully approved by the Board of Directors dating back to December of last year. This is a request to build a combination of both office as well as warehouse space on East Brighton Ave in the city. In working with the project team and in speaking with them, business has actually been growing exponentially. The project team is looking to make modifications and actually expand the overall size and scale of the project. At this point in time, we don't yet have the full scope and the updated plans and updated costs and budget of what that project would fully entail. But one of the things that the team has requested is an additional extension to be able to make those modifications, and ultimately would likely, we expect, to fully come back to us to consider those changes to the project. We'll note that we are joined by a representative here on behalf of the applicant today, so we would be able to potentially go into any additional detail, but what we would do at this point in time is by furthering that extension, and the recommendation from staff would be for a 6-month period, allowing the project team more time to put those plans fully together to come back before the board in 2024.
So basically just revising the plans?
Correct, yep, which our understanding is it would be actually be an expansion of the overall project plan, yep.
Which we will review, obviously, prior to.
Just as a point of clarification, every time you induce a project, attached to your inducement resolution, as you know, is what we call the agency agreement, which governs the relationship between the agency and the applicant prior to us closing on the transaction. In this case, we haven't closed on the transaction, and that agency lease is in effect for a 1-year period. So what the applicant is asking is, please extend that for 6 months to give us a chance to come back and to close on the transaction with you. Because if the time expires, then they have to start over. So.
I know the applicant is present. Anything you wish to add or address?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Just growth is
First,
really
I
it.
need your name and address. I'm sorry.
Certainly. Paul Bassett with Ironhorn, 5857 Fisher Road in East Syracuse.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's just growth. Over the course of the last year, we have a net gain of 7 employees and just a different makeup, more employees in the office. So we're planning to more than double the office space. fortunately, we've been the beneficiary of growth and just need to be able to put those bodies. So that's the reason for the request. Thank you.
Growth is a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments, concerns? Is there a motion? Motion made by Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Dirk. Last call. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? I can't talk anymore. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a Choice Neighborhood Opportunity Grant, or commonly known as the CNI grant. Eric.
Sure. So to give some more background to this request, which comes to us from the city of Syracuse, right now the city, in direct coordination with the Syracuse Housing Authority, is in the process of seeking a $50 million grant award that is currently accepting applications through February of 2024, known as the Choice Neighborhood Implementation, or CNI grant. For board members may recall that the city did request and seek this funding award approximately 2 years ago, and so a similar request was made before the board and before the agency. But what essentially this would do is provide $35,000 immediately up front for part of the grant request and submission and the work that's going to be needed as part of that request. However, there's an additional $50,000 that would also be part of a further scope of work to continue the revitalization planning effort. This is all part of the larger 15th Ward, but also the East Adams Revitalization and Neighborhood Project. We are joined by a representative from the city's Department of Neighborhood and Business Development, Sarah Walton, who can help fill in any additional gaps that I may not have covered. But the request itself, again, following very similar to what was done 2 years ago, is really positioning the city and SHA as best as possible to be competitive for this grant award. It is a very substantial grant application for that $50 million, so a lot of work is going into that over the next several weeks leading up to that February submission. This would directly help address that cost. It would be a 50% cost share for the application cost itself, and then again, further engagement, planning, and strategic work would happen later after the submission has been made.
So the request for us is not to exceed $85,000 of our funds to contribute towards the fee and application process for the CNI $50 million HUD grant. Did I, correct? Yep. Okay. Questions?
We give any money the last time they applied?
Okay. We gave 65, I believe, the last time towards the application. I can't speak to it. I know it did not get awarded. Sarah, I don't know if you want to add any comments regarding the last application.
Sure. Good morning. Sarah Walton, Department of Neighborhood and Business Development, 300 South State Street. That's correct. We did apply in early 2022 and were unsuccessful in the pursuit. We are led to believe, based on the revised notice of funding opportunity that's come out, that the Syracuse project is really well positioned to be competitive for this round of funding. We were not awarded on a technicality threshold issue last time and have since resolved that. But these funds are largely to support the expense associated with Urban Strategies Incorporated, which are a people or human service development organization to help with the relocation and case management, the support of the folks who are living in the footprint right now.
Thank you. Question for Sarah? Sarah, don't leave.
Go first.
So what changes about this application versus the other one where it's just not sort of moving it? Why is it $50,000 additional?
So, yeah, we have requested that the board and the agency consider up to $50,000, not to exceed $85,000, in addition to the application cost, to support the continuation of a scope of work for those USI services. The current scope of work is funded in partnership by Blueprint 15 and the Housing Authority, and that scope of work is probably set to expire in June, and we may not find out if we are successful with the CNI award until fall, late fall. And so this would provide that opportunity for continuity of services and to make sure that the case management and relocation support services are not interrupted while we wait for the CNI award, which would fund at a greater value the people plan or the services from USI if we are successful upon that award.
35 is basically a grant for City of Syracuse employees, staff, whatever, to work on the application.
Actually, no. So Urban Strategies is a national nonprofit organization. They work on choice programs around the country, and the $35,000 is 50% of their cost to support the application. So they have consultants and their team basically contributing to the Syracuse plan and application.
The only thing I would add too, Dirk, is just that city staff are directly contributing, and Sarah, and there's a team of city staff as well as others that are contributing that directly, but that's all just in-kind contribution as part of the city staff work and planning. But the USI, that consultant, that's part of that direct fee for their
Roughly
services.
70, 35 with the city, and 35.
That's right.
And the 50, to whom is the check written for the 50, if that's?
That will also be for USI, and then they'll be contributing directly to the grant submission and application, but they are also doing that engagement, strategic planning, and coordination work as well.
Yeah, USI is directly providing services right now in the community to current residents of McKinney Manor, and will provide services to all residents within that footprint in the form of case management and other support, human development supports.
Is the 50,000, the second piece of this, also split 50-50 with the city? Or is the Syracuse SHA and the project 15,
That would be a unique commitment that SIDA would, if we were honored to kind of progress in that way, that SIDA would make. The current scope of work, there is a scope of work in place that is being shared by the Syracuse Housing Authority and Blueprint 15. And so this would be an additional scope of work.
Thank you for being here too. Beyond the 85, sorry, that's this for him, I think. Is SIDA making any greater commitment going forward? We're successful, we get the big grant, we're all really happy. Does SIDA have a further commitment, inclination, obligation?
At this point in time, the goal is for the city and SHA to be successful in leveraging that $50 million, which will be certainly a catalyst for the larger transformation, which is more of a $500 million project or greater. But as part of this effort, this is one of the things that our capacity to be able to directly provide these services for USI to continue their work. And Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but as you stated, up until approximately June 30 is when the current contract will go for these services. So there is a gap. And then CNI, the goal and the intent would be to have that award successfully awarded in the fall. So this just really makes sure that that continues through the summer into the fall, and that work on the larger project continues.
And Sarah, was this the grant that was, that Buffalo received and such?
Yes, I believe I don't recall if they received an implementation grant, but they did receive planning. HUD has planning and implementation, and we're going after the implementation focused.
Good?
Only money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the request up to $85,000? Second?
Second.
Steve, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Next item, let's see. We are down to our 2024 meeting schedule, which was included in the packet. I urge you all to take a look. I know some people have already weighed in on potential conflicts. If there are any other conflicts, please let us know as soon as possible. That will be posted so that everyone else will know our 2024 meeting schedule. There is a request included also in the packet for an increase in our agency fee schedule on the administrative side, not the applicant side. Eric, I don't know if you want to speak to that or you want me to speak to it?
Sure. I think with the context I would just provide is as we've been looking at the additional annual project reporting administrative fee, traditionally that has always been $250 on an annual basis that each project that is currently active with the agency contributes. This is a wide range of things from the reporting website that the agency maintains that we continue to collect and use data that we report to New York State, to the Comptroller's Office. As part of our Paris system. And then furthermore, just continuing engagement with all the different projects to make sure they remain active and in compliance. So the proposal and what we'd like to present was a consideration to increase that annual fee from $250 as it currently stands up to $750 as part of that just annual traditional processing and administrative work that is required. We do anticipate this year we're going to be making further changes and building on and improving our reporting website because of the additional MWBE workforce compliance, some of the newer policies that the agency has implemented over the past year. There will be fees and costs associated with that, so this will help to continue the operations of those things that the agency will undertake. So for your consideration, but it would be an increase to help subsidize some of those costs.
Concerns? Hearing none. Motion.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Steve. Second, Ken. Last call for questions. Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, not last, sorry, is a update from Eric on the EPA grant, which is the, I will just remind everybody, the neighbor property to our Peach Street location.
So no further action but just more of an update for the board for your awareness. So the agency did successfully receive the $800,000 award from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to be used for a strategic target area that would include the Syracuse rigging site at 341 Peach Street, which the agency has owned for quite some time. But the scope also is expanded to other opportunities for properties to really look at additional revitalization, remediation efforts within that area. The Winkleman site is immediately adjacent to that location. It does remain tax delinquent. It is not owned and has not been foreclosed upon. However, we have the opportunity to use this grant funding to look at larger revitalization and addressing the environmental contamination in this area. So one of the things that we will be doing is issuing a request for proposals to be able to bring on a consultant that will work on behalf of SIDA. It is included as an eligible expense within the funding to really do design work, planning, to be able to do environmental testing of several sites within this area to really be able to begin the process of looking at future uses, particularly for 341 Peach Street, given the fact that that is the one property that's owned by SIDA at this time. So that is something that we intend on releasing that RFP once we're ready to go, and then we would bring on a firm and seek the board's approval ultimately with a recommendation. In order for us to move forward, bringing on more technical expertise, particularly with environmental planning work, remediation, and then larger site design for how these properties could be reused in the future. So more information to come, but one of the things we just want to make the board aware is that we will be issuing an RFP and seeking consultants and firms to bid on this opportunity.
Refresh my memory, who owns the Winkleman? I know it's grossly the most tax delinquent property in the city.
It is correct.
Who owns the building?
So the technical entity is GSI of Virginia, Inc. So it's a corporation. We have in the past through foreclosure measures have tried to get in contact with owners prior. That those efforts have been unsuccessful. We're not aware of any next of kin, but so it's still privately owned, remains tax delinquent. One of the things that we are just looking at is being able to use this fund to really take a look at opportunities within this larger area, given the fact that we own Syracuse rigging and 341 Peach Street right next door.
No contact with the people, and it's a corporation. You've been on these people and you can't get them to respond.
Not so much, but no, others have been, and no.
Any other questions? No further action required at this point in time, I believe, correct, Eric? Sue, we're just planning more to come in 2024 on that project. And the last item on the agenda is a review on our UTEP, which, as you know, Sue, Eric, myself, Jean now, because of bonding requests and requirements, have been working hard to review our UTEP, attempting to try to make the correct changes to address some of the things that we've seen, like the housing crisis, the housing problem. We are in the middle right now of the second phase of the city housing study, which I am a member of the steering committee. Eric is also a member. tell you that it is an enormously comprehensive review of the housing situation in the city and will bring with it enormous recommendations, I believe, when it is completed in the spring. The consultants, as well as Michelle and her team, will be at our January meeting to do a presentation on where we are with the housing study and what they anticipate going forward, the IDA and other economic development activities within the city can do to help improve the future of housing in the city of Syracuse. With all of that, it is our recommendation that we wait to incorporate what potential recommendations come out of that study into our UTEP as possible benefits, maybe not, but possible benefits in particular areas of housing or economic development or commercial or whatever they recommend, and therefore not implement a change on the UTEP, hoping June 30th of 2024 as our date, which means you would see everything probably April for review, May for discussion, and June for passage. Sue, you think that's right?
I think that's close.
Okay.
I would offer to the board the opportunity to say, we're going to put a pin in the effective date of the UTEP that was amended several months ago until further reporting back by the chairman, with the anticipation that it comes in June. But that way, if the housing study, the second phase, has a hiccup or there are other issues that come into play, she can keep you apprised, but we're not going to set a hard date because we've seen what has happened through the course of the housing study. When the chair says it's enormous, that's an understatement. The amount of work that has gone into the housing study, the consultant who has been here, who has dug in, who has provided an oversight that I think, well, I'll only speak for myself, but I was totally unaware. I mean, I knew there was an issue. I didn't understand and couldn't comprehend until he explained it to me how vast the issue is, which of course makes it 1,000 times more complicated, right? I always believe I can fix anything. This is hard. And so that's my only comment. I think your number is close, but to give you as much flexibility because she's not controlling it. She would like to. As much as I would. I do believe I wear a crown and have a wand, but we're not running this show. We are along for the ride and trying to figure out how we can best help achieve the best results for the residents of the city as a result of the study. So that's my only comment.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? Concerns? As I said, you'll hear directly from everybody in January, not from me, from the consultants and the staff who's directly running Housing Strategy Steering Committee. So that will be a good update as well. Do we need a motion?
We do.
We do, okay. If there's no further comments.
Dirk, are you asking me why we need a motion?
Oh, go ahead.
What the motion's gonna say.
Well, we can talk about that too, but the reason you need a motion is because as it was last approved by this board, the amended UTEP would go into effect January 1. And we're asking to hold that further because we don't believe it is currently in a shape that addresses the issues raised by the housing study. So we need a motion, otherwise it goes into effect January 1.
I guess I do have a question.
Okay.
Work that's being done and what you anticipate to be enhancements go further than where we would be otherwise? I mean, is there a reason we
Yes.
shouldn't go forward on January 1st with what we have?
Yes,
There is a reason why we shouldn't go forward on
Yes.
January 1st? Okay.
yes.
Rather than waiting to July 1st?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. The work that is being discussed and researched and reviewed at this moment going forward into these early January, February, March piece of the housing study goes much further than what we would do having been left to our own devices.
No, but I guess my question
And
is,
so and then, yes, what I would say is, I want everybody to have the opportunity to hear all of that. Doesn't mean we're gonna do all of it, it just means we're gonna hear all of it, including what are other communities doing with their benefits and incentives. And then we can make a informed, I believe, informed recommendation, decision on what we can and can't do. Go ahead, sorry.
no, my only question was, so it would not be constructive to start with what we already have scheduled on January 1st. It would be inefficient, unwise, and much more efficient and wiser to wait to July 1st or whatever.
Correct, especially for applicants, if we're whipsawing change.
Yeah.
Good? Anyone else? Is there a motion?
Which is basically to hold in abeyance the January 1st date, or?
My recommendation, if you're asking me, which I get that I'm not a voting member, but my recommendation would be to move to hold the effective date in abeyance until further reporting and recommendation from the chair.
So moved. So moved.
She already loves me, so this is great.
Who seconded that? Steve? Ken? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Motion carries. Yes, please, new business, discussion, any questions? Eric, question for you.
I'm sorry, okay.
So just curious to know what your sense of activity is. Has the slight reduction in interest rates poked people who have projects approved or who are talking to you to get further down the road or not?
So, I think, right, it's